My Hero Academia chapter 257, Make It Your Own. So this was an excellent chapter, a lot of reveals, some really significant ones, and then a huge cliffhanger at the ending, which of course we'll get into, but there's quite a few things that we need to talk about before that, so let's get into it. So we're finally getting some insight into the previous users of One For All, because All Might is finally supplying his compost to Bakugo and Izuku. So apparently the second and third users have no information on them. He just couldn't find anything. There's no records. And that's pretty interesting, right? Specifically because of the second user. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but my friend Ariels Quirk made a video, I think last month, about who the second user could have been, and that is, of course, Bakugo, because the silhouette looks just like him. Like, when we get a better look at his silhouette a couple chapters back, it straight up has like his hair and the gauntlet, and then he has like this crazy awesome time travel theory that goes along with it, and it all makes sense. So please check out his video on Bakugo being the second user of One For All. I know it sounds crazy, but it makes sense once you look into it. And now that we're getting like this whole little thing about how there's no information on the second and third users, it's kind of interesting, and it's making things seem more likely at this point. But also another thing about the previous users of One For All is that we're getting the name of the Black Whip dude, and that is Lariat. So that's an interesting name, but we're also getting more clarification on the Black Whip itself. So apparently it can only really last for like a second, and that's about it. It's not like a stable, like long-lasting quirk the way that like Sero has like his tape quirk, and it's not really like a binding type thing the way that Aizawa uses a capture scarf. So it's kind of just like a one-done quick thing, and we get more clarification on that when it says like the type of user that Lariat was. It's like his specialty was binding and maneuvering midair with energy that shot out of his body in the shape of rope. So he kind of just shot it, and then it was the one-and-done thing, and he kind of moved that way. Kind of like Spider-Man, but just without the the long-lasting the web swinging him around and whatnot. So that's interesting. I mean, I guess that just makes Izuku not as broken, but, of course, still pretty broken. Also, another super interesting thing is we're seeing the history of the users of One For All, because Bakugo's like, oh, the Black Whip quirk is weak, they're all weaklings, why did they all get One For All? And it turns out that they are not all like monsters. They're not, as they point out in this chapter, the chosen ones, the way that like All Might and Izuku are perceived to be. They were simply just people that were needed to just pass the quirk on, because like if they weren't there, it would have just died, and like that was their purpose. I mean, it wasn't because they were like monsters or super significant. They were just somehow affiliated with the previous users, and they happened to be at the right place and time in order for this to get passed on, to ensure they would eventually wind up in the hands of an All Might or an Izuku. And this is, of course, because All For One was just way too, like, crazy, like, authoritative and powerful, and he kept tracking everyone down. Like, he was so aggressive with it that, like, they hardly had a chance to really pass it on to, like, an All Might or Izuku, because they just didn't have time for that to happen. So, actually, we see, like, some of them are, like, dying, or at least it appears that they're dying as they pass this on. Like, that's how serious it was. In this awesome, like, panel that we're seeing of the lineage of it getting passed on, it also shows us like how things worked out. So if we're looking at all of the previous users, so we've got the original, of course, All For One's brother, One For All, I guess we'll call him, and then that was passed down to allegedly Bakugo, we'll say, the second user, and then that was passed on to the other unknown user who appears to have like some kind of ponytail, I suppose. And then based off of this panel, it looks like the third user passed it on to the dude with the lines on his eye. So I guess he was the fourth user. And then it looks like he passed it on to Lariat, who was the fifth user. And then Lariat passed it on to the Best Genius looking dude. And in between like these three, it looks like they were like on their deathbeds as they were passing this down. More specifically, it looks like Lariat and the Best Genius dude were like dying in order to like pass this on. And then the Best Genius dude passed it on to Nana, and then of course on All Might and on to Izuku. But now let's go on to the other big reveal, and that is we're finally finding out what Nana's quirk was, and that is Float. Now this is just like a early translation. It might be called Float, it might not be called Float, but Interestingly enough, if you go back to the All Might Rising special OVA or just chapter in general, we actually see her using this. And I just didn't realize it at the time because, we didn't know what it was. But when she touches All Might and like sends him flying, that's her using it. So this means that not only she can make herself float, but she can make others float. So yes, that reminds you of Uraraka's quirk. But is it the same? Probably not. Uraraka's has to do with gravity manipulation. I assume that Nana's is just strictly like floating, just that principle alone. But that's pretty interesting, right? That she has that ability, and we kind of saw it before. Like, I originally thought that she was just pushing All Might super strong and like pushing him with the force, because obviously she's super powerful because she also has one for all. But no, it turns out she was making him float, so that's pretty cool. Horikoshi like almost pulling like an Oda-esque foreshadowing there. So some people also might think that, oh, does this mean that All for One took Nana's quirk because he was kind of doing something similar to what we see Nana doing in this one panel when he was going against All Might? Now, maybe not. His quirk specifically was called Airwalk. Now, is that what Nana's quirk is going to be called? Remains to be seen. If it is, then yeah, we can know for sure that he took Nana's quirk. But it seems like that was probably just something different. Like, Airwalk is just specifically for, like, going up in the air and just staying there. I think that's how his quirk worked. I don't think he can, like, float and move throughout the air. I think he could just, like, go up like an elevator. But also, that would, like, really change things, because that means that he would be able to, like, not only just take, like, a quirk from Nana, but he would be able to distinguish between taking, like, one for all from her and the float quirk, and somehow you thought they would be, like, binded together. I don't know, but I just think that All for One had, like, a different quirk than Nana's. But then it's also revealed that this is going to be the next quirk that Izuku is going to receive in the Vestige lineage. So this is also going to be awesome, because we're probably most likely definitely going to see him interacting with Nana, which is like a big moment because we're finally going to get to see them two interact. Whether it be like her one for all ghost or her force ghost, if not, it's still, pretty cool nonetheless to get to see them talk to each other. And then, of course, Izuku's going to have a floating quirk, which I assumed that he was going to have. I knew that he was going to have something that made him, like, fly or something, because he needs that. If he's going to get 7 friggin' quirks, then he's going to get, something that, like, allows him to at least, like, have something close to flight, because that's, like, seems like essential if you're trying to craft, like, an overpowered hero after all. So then we get, like, a nice little slice of life moment with Class 1A, and they're doing, like, an end of the year or starting of the second school year party, and that's cool and everything. But then we come to All Might talking to Aizawa, and first they're talking about Eri. And Aizawa says something interesting. He says, she's sound asleep. We'll begin training this upcoming week. And All Might says, I'll help you. So they're going to try to train Eri to get an understanding or just a better grasp of her quirk. And this is important because her quirk is integral to the story. If I have to go back to Turtle Quirk's theory about Bakugo being the second user of One for All, Eri plays a gigantic part in that, and that's probably what this is leading to. If not, it's just simply getting Mirio's quirk back, first of all. Because obviously Mirio needs to get his friggin' quirk back. Considering what is going to happen in the story, they need all of the help they can get. And if Mirio just stays quirkless, then they are even more at a disadvantage than what they already are. But also, All Might's like, I've decided to live. And then they go more into that. And this is definitely more red flags about All Might's eventual death coming up. It's unfortunate, and it's really going to suck when it happens, but I for sure think All Might is going to be killed by Shigaraki in this next coming big war arc. I assume that is happening, like the Paramount War of My Hero. But let's get into that, because it just straight up cuts to a time skip. Now we're in late March. We just went all the way to the opportune time for what we can assume this is when Shigaraki is done his metamorphosis. Because it said that it was going to be like 4 months back when Yujiko put him inside of that cocoon thing. So it's been about that amount of time since then. And then we see Yujiko in the hospital, and this is like definitely confirming that he is in fact, the Yujiko that we saw in the, I guess the first episode, right? When he tells Izuku that he doesn't have a quirk about the pinky bone and everything. But then we come to the very last panel, and it says, on this day, the heroes vanished from the streets. What in the world happened since then? So I think we can all assume what happens here. But also, I read this thing on Reddit about, I don't know, there was like an update somebody saw in like a extra panel. I don't know, some kind of information came out that allegedly it's confirmed that the heroes went to go fight the Paranormal Liberation Front. I don't know if that is true, but apparently it seemed pretty legit. Maybe not. You know, sometimes like misinformation gets thrown around unintentionally. This might be the case, but regardless, I think that is what's going on here. Heroes vanish from the streets. Has something to do with the Paranormal Liberation Front because, you know, this time that it has come to right now is lining up with Shigaraki, you know, coming out of his cocoon, we can assume, and then he's ready to just, you know, topple Hero Society, which is his end goal. So we're going to get into, like I said, the Paramount War, the Marineford, if you're familiar with One Piece, version of My Hero Academia. We're going to have the Paranormal Liberation Front, which is obviously super overpowered at this point. In my opinion, way more powerful than what the hero establishment has. Anything that they have. Even the top 10 Billboard heroes, all of UA, all of the other schools, all of the other heroes that we don't know about, they're really going to need help from like other countries or something because they're just too overpowered at this point. But I'm thinking that this is going to end in tragedy. All Might is going to die. Endeavor might die. Most of the pro heroes might die or something like this. And then it might fall on the students to have to go into hiding or something and then come back at a later time. And then we might have another time skip. And then that might lead us into a whole new series in general. Like, My Hero Academia might be finished here. And then we might go into, like, My Hero Shippuden. You know, kind of like how Naruto did. I could totally see Horikoshi doing that. So, I mean, it's really up in the air what's going to happen, but it seems like we might get something like that. But let me know what you think about this chapter. Very important. Please, let me know all your theories. What do you think about the Bakugo second user theory? But if you like the video, guys, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon that gives you access to a weekly Q&A, and if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.